Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. And of course, we're going to go a little bit off the beaten path. You know, we always talk about football, football, football. But we're going to talk about a little baseball because it is Major League Baseball playoff time. But we're not going to go down that path just yet. We're going to talk about baseball and Black people in baseball. We're going to get a little bit into that with my guest today, Mr. Andre Stover. How you doing, man?
I can't be more gracious, man, to be on your show, and I'm doing really, really well. Nice to be here.
Yes, sir. For those that are not aware, can you kind of give them a little bit of your history with baseball, if you don't mind?
Well, just a little. I've been in baseball probably for most of my life. Started since age 7, but really to hit my stride, I've been in baseball coaching and developing players for a little over 36 years. Um, Started, of course, like every little kid, start out in little league, high school, college. Um, got drafted out of I got drafted in 1984 out of high school by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Joe Casoli, Ron Rizzi, who was looking at me when I was playing at University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and they saw me against College Park. But they were looking at me a long time ago before that. And then I became a scout for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I've been in baseball pretty much ever since. More so just trying to help kids, get to the next level and develop them as much as I can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's very important to definitely want to help kids to develop and get to the next level. Not just, on the field. I'm pretty sure off the field, you kind of have talks as well with them.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
You got to definitely got to develop the full person. So, I want to bring you on to talk about something that I see, or should I say don't see, in Major League Baseball. And that's people that look like you and me. We don't see that very much, and they have kind of disappeared from the game as time has gone on. Yet we have Jackie Robinson Day, but that's another story for another day. But what can you say you attribute less Black people being on the screen and in Major League Baseball to? What were your thoughts on that?
Whoa. My thoughts really is so many. It's multi. I mean, it's just not one constant. I just think they don't want us there. They don't want us there in numbers like we have numbers in football and in basketball. I just don't think they want us there. I think they do it in such a way where I think it's calculated, where if you don't see you, if African American kids don't see themselves on the tube, they'll turn it off and they won't look at it. I mean, it's happened to me. I mean, World Series is getting ready to be around the corner. I can't remember looking at that World Series game probably since the 90s. I haven't even turned it on. I just looked at it recently a few minutes ago for the home run chase and all that stuff. But I just don't think they want us there. And there's so many different ways that I can say that they don't, is because they don't do the things that they could do. And a lot of kids don't realize it, and the media don't really talk about it. So, of course, if the media is not talking about it, nobody's talking about it on social media, or the people who do talk about it that are in Major League Baseball, they disappear, because it's a black eye for Major League Baseball that they don't want to talk about. So the decline it's I know growing up in the city of Baltimore, where I'm from, Baltimore, Maryland, they don't manicure the fields. So it's hard to play when the grass is tall as your knees. It's hard to play baseball if you got glass on the field. It's hard to field baseballs and play the sport because it's really expensive. We all know that, but that's not changing anything. People trying to make football inexpensive. Pads. I mean, football is expensive too. I mean, in basketball, not necessarily basketball, but football is expensive. So a lot of times where sports are really expensive, like golf back in the day, it costs a lot of money to have clubs to play, and then you had to get lessons to play, else you just wouldn't play the game, or you'll get frustrated. So I think because no one's reaching out from Major League Baseball's, they've reached out, but they know that it's all they got to do is reach out a little bit, and everything else will go back to its normal self. It's kind of like the Jackie Robinson thing, you know. Jackie Robinson is the 4 point. I mean, is in the forefront of Major League Baseball when they have Jackie Robinson Day. And then what happens is everybody's wearing 42. And then after a minute, you look at it and you're saying, why is everybody wearing 42? I get it. But the problem is baseball is hiding Jackie Robinson within itself because they don't want to really show how many African-American players are actually playing. There are teams right now. And did you know, like in 1987, the league was like 22% African-American. Around about 18.7 African-American, and then about 22% of the all-star rosters were African-American. Right now, it's about 7.3, they say 7.6 right now as far as players in the Major League Baseball. And those numbers, I mean, it's crazy because guys that get drafted, just because you drafted and you're African-American, the point of the matter is who's on the Major League roster. So a lot of guys get picked up and drafted. They made a big deal this year about the top 5 guys. 4 of them were African-American this year, and this first round draft picks this year. Okay, cool. That's nice. The question is, will they be on the Major League Baseball roster, or is that just a number that they're showing that someone got drafted but not actually playing professionally? There are teams right now that don't in Major League Baseball right now that don't have not one single African American on the team right now. There's teams right now that don't have them. Matter of fact, I think the Dodgers is the whitest baseball team, and that's ironic because Jackie Robinson was there. You know, they were in the forefront of it, but they don't have not one black player on their team, from my understanding. Not one. When I say black player, I'm talking about African American. I'm not talking about people of color. I'm talking about African Americans. So those are the things that are, I guess, fighting against a lot of kids wanting to be able to see their heroes, like the Michael Jordans and the LeBron James and the great football greats that they have, and they want to be able to see that in baseball. But the ones that they used to have were in the 70s and 80s. Those are the players that I idolize, and they're just not there, So it's the task is daunting. But I've been in the trenches for a while trying to do my part. And you can only do you can only put a Band-Aid on a wound that big, and the wound is really, really big because nobody's talking about it. You're talking about it today, and that's awesome, and I appreciate that, really do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, you did mention the issue and the problem, but in your opinion, what are some solutions or some thoughts you have on, kind of building towards a solution?
The solution, I really honestly believe the solution starts with really transparency in reference to numbers. They throw these numbers out, but they don't back them up with action, so to speak. I think Dusty Baker might be one of the. I've been out of baseball from that perspective. I know Dusty Baker is the one black manager that's there that's been revered for a while. He's there, and outside of Dusty Baker, the only because I know Dusty Baker is because he was one of my idols back in the day growing up. So I don't know him, but I just don't think that it's enough being done. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to really just fathom that the thought of it is just amazing just to really think about. I just think it's just not enough done. And I really don't honestly know what else can be done, to be honest, outside of Major League Baseball diving into what the real issues are. And I think I think they know the real issues are. I think they just don't want to touch it. Because here's the thing. Let's say when we talked about, the Williams sisters, Serena Williams, and they're playing tennis. Okay. Every black little girl picked up a tennis racket and was trying to emulate their idols, and then people gravitated to the Williams sisters, and they were number one and number two in the world. And it took it by storm. And we seen the story in the movies with Will Smith, et cetera, talking about it, et cetera. But that's the same way it was with baseball. But Jackie Robinson was that spark, and it was going on for a long time. So if baseball is keeping you out of the game, then the kids have nothing to shoot for. They try to say the game is boring. No, the game is really not boring. They're selling that. They're selling that as boring, and it's not really boring. It's not. It's a very strategic game. They price you out of the market where the bats are expensive and it's hard to play the game and training, etc. And all of that stuff goes in play. And even when you go into Black historically colleges, most of the programs are run by non-African Americans and HBCUs. And I asked you a question, off air, how many actually HBCUs that have football programs or basketball programs where the head coach is white? And it's very few. But in baseball, it's a normal perspective. So it looks just like Major League Baseball is right now. It's the same exact thing. It doesn't change. So if you don't change it from the grassroots, you can't expect it to change on another level if you haven't even checked it from the grassroots.
That's true. That's true. You're right. You're right. And, hopefully, some changes do happen. I remember growing up playing baseball. I played baseball until I was 11 years old. So I remember playing and my dad actually being the manager for the team. So
okay.
that was something that, I didn't think about more, I didn't think about that much more until like just now when you were talking about it. But growing up, a lot of dads out there being managers of their dads, their sons' teams, and actually look like us. So that was huge back in the day. But I guess at this point, I just didn't really kind of put two and two together. But yeah, that's definitely missing, and along with baseball being missing at the park where I used to play. So there's really like no baseball at the park that I used to play at now. So
there you go.
It's interesting. Definitely.
There you go. There you go.
Now I do want to talk about a particular story that we had talked about in the past, and you told me it's kind of changed up a little bit more now. But there was a player at the University of Kentucky that he had mentioned that didn't quite get the fanfare you believed that he should have, or the attention that he should have gotten, and it didn't necessarily go the way he thought it should in terms of being ready for the Major League Baseball and getting in there. Can you tell us a little bit about that player's name, or if you like, or what all was going on, and kind of where it started, and what the whole situation was, and bring us up to now, if you like?
Well, it's ironic because a lot of it, if you pay attention to it really closely, you try not to see some of the same things. We talked about the grassroots level, how things operate, and how it come into focus in reference to a kid per se. The kid is Daniel Harris IV, and he played at the University of Kentucky. Very good player. Excuse me, very good player. Played second base. 6 players on his team were drafted. 4 pitchers, a shortstop, and a third baseman, and he played second base. Now, I do believe that Danny would have been drafted anywhere if he was playing out other than second base. And I think when he transferred over, he completed, I guess, for a team. You know how a team has really good players in different positions, and you join a team and you're part of that team and you're playing a position. Be honest with you, second base is one of the lowest draft tiers. Like, it's like being a kicker or a punter. It's not that bad, but it's like if you're like back when we were kids, right field was like a death sentence, right? It was like you played right field, you couldn't play. Everybody knew you couldn't play. It's not like that anymore. That's changed because now you can draft really talented players and have so many talented players. You have no choice but to play right field because there's no, the guy he's an all-star in center field, he's an all-star in left field, and you're an all-star center fielder, but we don't need another center field. Can't have two people in center field, so you play right field. Okay, cool. So in that case, that's how I felt like Danny was. Danny was on a team where he had a lot of great players around him. So him playing second base really kind of like shrunk him a little bit to a point. And everybody, even his coach, his head coach, felt like he should have been drafted. So when I say that, I say when you got 6 guys drafted from that team, and let's say for an example, you got someone from the Colorado Rockies. Now he was on the draft board. He was on draft board. I think he was with the Padres. Had him on the draft board. I think trying to remember all the teams that had him on the draft. There were quite a few, but my point is, when you got 6 guys drafted from that team, and for an example, you got whoever picked the guy from the pitchers, or the 4 pitchers, and the shortstop and the third baseman, all these teams come in, and there's no way you can't see this kid if you're in there, so you can't see him. All right, so what happens is that if you're a head coach and you're saying, hey, you got all these players, say, this kid, I don't think his coach spoke up for him. I don't think his coach actually spoke up for him. If he did, we don't know what he said. We can all, we don't know what he said. It wasn't vocal. If it was vocal, then it would have been, you would go a little further for a kid. And I think that was because they had a run-in, an issue, I think an argument or some type, not the head coach, but the whole dynamics with that. And that's because I think a lot of stuff that just wasn't happening that was fair. And a lot of schools, there are just 1 or 2 black players on some of those powerhouse schools, and sometimes it's just one. So it's kind of like you're kind of like stuck in the same situation all over again. But we talked about this dynamic of being on the grassroots level. So this kid is playing at a predominant school. He's not playing at HBCU. He's playing when SEC. He's playing on a big platform, baseball. So he's getting the top notch players that he play against, seeing all the time. Just like if he was in football, he's being seen. And so I just think that he was just really overlooked. And now here's the thing: there's a lot of kids that are overlooked. We all know that happens. That's par for the course. That's not something new. What makes this kid so special, make this kid so special, is that he really wanted to break this ceiling, or break this thing, like a lot of other African American players do. And by him playing second base, it was kind of like a death sentence, because even though he could play short or could play third, he was a team player at University of Kentucky. So he didn't play those positions. So those guys who played those high positions probably got drafted. Now, if he went to another school, whole different story. And on top of that, you got the pandemic that happened with COVID, knocked down a lot of rounds in the draft. So a lot of kids that normally would have been drafted didn't get drafted because the rounds were cut. So that's part of it too. But it's easy for me to say that's the only reason. And I just don't think that it is the only reason. I think it's about what's been going on all throughout baseball when we talk about these percentages of how many African Americans are playing. So if you get a kid to get drafted, of course, if he gets drafted and he does well, then those numbers, of course, go up. So if those numbers go up, Major League Baseball don't want those numbers to go up. They don't. Because here's the thing. You can't tell me, and I'm going to be really honest, you can't tell me that we have all these outstanding African-American players that play football, that play basketball, from Deion Sanders to Bo Jackson, to name a few, that play both sports. You can't tell me that all these talented kids out here can't play baseball. They're waiting to play, and they're just not getting picked or selected because the numbers don't lie. When it was 20%, back in 1970, and it's 7.6 now, 7.3, whatever it is, it's under 8%. That tells you all you need to know. And half the teams back in the day, you had probably about every team had about at least maybe 5. And sometimes I think the Pittsburgh Pirates had about, like right now, the blackest team, I won't say the blackest team, but the team would have the most African-American players is the Seattle Mariners. I think they got 12. So that's like that, and they're in the playoffs. So go figure.
Yeah.
They got 12.
Right. Yeah. That says a lot. It definitely says a lot. And it's interesting just how things are going, how things are, and and like you said, it sounds like it doesn't want to be changed to happen, or Major League Baseball doesn't want that change to happen.
No, I don't believe they do. I think they. I mean, I was around. I was around in 93. RBI was rolled out in New York City. It was myself. It was Dave Winfield, Hall of Famer, Ozzie Smith, the Hall of Famer. Steve Garvey was there. Matter of fact, Ruby D and Ozzie Davis was there. It was like a gala of all Negro League players that were living. And they were rolling out RBI program, which is, I think, reviving baseball in the inner cities. So I was there in 93. So I had a chance to hear all these wonderful things that was going to happen. It started out in New York City. So RBI is still around to this day. RBI is still around to this day. And I'm not saying they're not doing their part. But the problem is that I don't, in my case, in Maryland, a lot of the programs, they were so small from a standpoint of, let's say for an example, it was like little league baseball. They had big kids playing little league baseball. So you got kids, little league kids playing, you got big kids playing little league baseball. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about the quality of play. The quality of play is what elevates you.
Right.
If I play, let's say at a small HBCU, and I'm like, and my competition is other small HBCU, and they just, because most of the big schools have already pulled all the talent out of the neighborhoods to play on TV and all these big shows, and the HBCUs got what's left, or the ones who were able to just say, hey, I ain't got nowhere else to play, let me play here. So they end up playing. So when you're playing on this lower level, so RBI program to me was a low level. It was a grassroots level. And right now, that's where they kept a lot of African Americans playing on a grassroots level. So they can't really get anywhere because they're at a grassroots level. They can't see, like I moved from Maryland to Arizona. So, I've been all over different places, and I know baseball is totally different from Maryland than it is in Arizona. Arizona is baseball king. Like Florida is baseball king. Like in Texas, football rules. Okay. So in certain states, in certain areas, the baseball is so low that it if you don't have enough money to travel and see what's really out there, you never get an opportunity to be able to see, I'm because I have a lot of kids that think they're really good and they're not until they actually see what's really good. I've had that happen before. I had a kid that I had drafted. His name was Kellen Wallace, and he got drafted by the Anaheim Angels. So it was a couple years ago, a good little while ago. And it was a kid that was under my reign. And when he got drafted, he's one of the top players in the state of Maryland. But I told him, I said, yeah, remember when you're one of the top players in the state of Maryland, you got 50 other states. So if you got 49 other states that have representation, and then you're there, and then you're just the best of the best. And then at that time of day, then it's like only but so many guys are going to be chosen. So even if you're great in your state, it doesn't mean you're going to get chosen, because the field only takes 18. It's 50 states. So somebody's going to be left out. So you got to be bigger and better than where you come from. And a lot of times, a lot of African Americans, they have to be better than their contemporaries just to be seen. And it's happened. I was in Vegas and I was watching an episode, it was a football episode, and they were talking about Alabama back in the day. Bear Bryant, you might know about that because you're into football. So, and Bear Bryant refused to have an African American playing on their team, and then all these other teams decided to add black players, and they were winning. And Alabama's like one of the last teams, I think, that didn't want to switch over. And then, eventually he did. And then when he did, he took some of the best African American players, and then he started winning and winning and winning, et cetera, in history. And then I think the rest is history. And now the NFL is loaded with all types of players, but it's just not like that in baseball anymore. So the game has just changed.
Definitely, the game has changed for sure. Now you did mention you don't really watch the current baseball going on right now, not quite as much. But I did want to. I'm pretty sure you may have saw this though. The actual search that happened last night out there with the Padres pitcher. I think Buck Showalter had him searched for illegal substances. They even had the umpire feeling on this man's ear out there at the at the mound, which I thought was I was kind of perplexed and shocked, and I was like, I laughed a little bit at it. I mean, what did these type of things been happening for a while now? Did he really
that's
do that?
Back in the day? Yeah, back in the day, they used to do all kind of stuff. I mean, they used to hide it. They used to hide it in their brim. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, baseball is one of those, you look for edges in advance, anything you can. The same with football. They just a lot of stuff that goes on. It's a lot of stuff that goes on those piles when you tackling that nobody knows about.
Right.
Okay. So when you say, does those things really happen? Yeah, you hear a lot of stories. People getting their fingers bitten and whatever. You just can imagine. So yeah, I didn't see it, but I'm not totally surprised of it. No, not at all. Not at all.
Now, I will tell you that, of course, the two teams everyone's talking about, the Yankees and the Dodgers, and I know for Major League Baseball, that would be a dream scenario for them to have the Yankees and the Dodgers play each other. That's more of a to me. Do you think that's more of a marketing thing that they want that, or do you think it's more of a just a history thing of the Yankees and the Dodgers, those historic teams or whatever?
Well, I think right now, I think it's about Aaron Judge right now. I think it's about that story. I mean, truth be told, the Yankees is one of my favorite teams of just my team that I've always loved. Especially back in the day when again I had black players, as well as white players that I love, all of them. Bucky Dent, you name it. Chris Chambliss, Reggie Jackson, and just a whole host of different players. Goose Gossage, Ron. Can't remember his last name. Ron, I can't remember right now. But anyway, a lot of those players. So I think as far as the how they want the rivalry to go or how they would like for it to be is no different. They want to have their stars there. They want to be able to have the market. You know how it is, that large market, that LA, New York market. I mean, that's the ultimate dream, scenario, to have two of the largest markets, on the greatest stages and take it to a game 7. It means all cities and both coasts win. And then it helps. They're trying to do anything they can to compete because, truth be told, which most kids don't even realize, especially African-American kids don't even realize, and younger guys that are under, I'm 56, so a lot of guys that are younger than, a lot younger, I won't say a little bit younger, but a lot younger than me, baseball was king. Not football. Mm-hmm. Baseball. Baseball was king. It was the sport. It was second to nothing. It was king. And that was years ago. Even it's king to me right now because I love football way more than I love baseball as a fan. And as a purist of the sport, I love the game of football. I just love it. But the game, of course, like I said before, was king. And so right now, those markets, New York and the Dodgers, they're thriving and everything else is going on. And it's California versus, the Bronx of New York City. So it's kind of like iconic in it's kind of like when basketball don't have the Knicks ever got, whatever, that city would go bananas. So New York Yankees is the New York Knicks of football, of baseball for them. So yeah, I'm not surprised. That's what they would love to have, because I think the World Series has been boring. I don't want to say it's been boring because I haven't watched it. So that's how boring it is. I haven't even watched it. So I can't even say it's boring. I just haven't even watched it because I had no reason to watch it. Unless I have one of my players. When I get one of my players there, then I'll automatically be the supporter of that particular team because I have a player representing that team. But outside of that, that's why I deal with the young folks, and I help develop the young guys, because I don't really watch Major League Baseball because I just think that it's tainted in a lot of different ways, and I want to try to change that with the kids that I work with.
Gotcha. Totally understand. Totally understand. Now, of course, we've gone through talking about baseball, talking about the different changes over the years and the different ways that African Americans are not actually there on the field. But I do want to end it on a little bit of a fun note in terms of our conversation today. So I do have a game for you. I have 5 questions. I've got 2 answers. We're going to keep it all baseball.
Okay.
And, you got one choice.
One choice. Okay, that's interesting.
All right, I've got 2 players that a lot of that are very, very popular.
Oh my God,
been very, very popular. Ken Griffey Jr. or Barry Bonds. Which one you taking?
Well, listen. I'm taking Ken Griffey for only one reason and one reason only. I'm connected to the Griffeys.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was an easy one for me. And not only that, they're 2 different. Here's the crazy. They're the same, but they're different. I love them. But here's the thing. I love them both. There's no way I could really choose. But here's the thing. Bonds, back in the day when I was scouted and drafted by the Pirates, Bonds was one of my idols too. When he was skinny and he was still hitting the ball at the park, which is crazy. So and Griffey was the younger version. I think I'm older than Griffey. So Griffey, I was looking at Griffey as not little, like he's little, but I was a fan of his father, the senior. Okay, so his father was one of my idols. So when Griffey Jr. came around, it was kind of like, okay, that's the father of one of my idols. So I paid attention to him, and then he just became one of the all-time great players. But I have a special place for Bonds in my heart, because I just think that he was a very feared hitter. And they talk about this drug stuff, man. But I'm gonna tell you something. A drug can't hand-eye coordination is hand-eye coordination. Now, if he was a kid or somebody that wasn't hitting home runs at all, okay, then talk to me, because he was hitting them out left and right before that stuff even came into play.
Right.
But what's the next one?
All right. Let's see. We got Ozzie Smith or Ernie Banks.
Oh, Ozzie, no question. The Wizard. The Wizard, no question about it. Wizard, Ozzie made that. Now, Ernie Banks, I'm biased because I know of Ernie Banks. I don't know as a baseball historian. I only know him from that he was a great player. That's what I know for sure. One of the all-time best. I grew up watching Ozzie, so it's a difference. It's kind of like a Michael Jordan, LeBron James type of thing. So I grew up watching Ozzie, and Ozzie was one of the most gifted shortstops that made some of the plays that they're making now. He was making them in his sleep back then. He was the only guy that was making plays like that. Like now everybody's doing it. It's kind of like funny because you get a chance to see what's possible. And a lot of African Americans did that in that sport. They made things happen that you was like, wow, I've never seen that before. And then you can say that with every sport you see. Whether it's football, when you got Odell Beckham making the catch that he made, okay, cool. They've been doing that. It's just the opportunity presented itself for him to be able to do something that he's been practicing all his life. Ozzie was doing plays like that in a minute, and so your greatness comes out when you have an opportunity to showcase it. And sometimes it's so awesome that most people look at it like, wow, that was awesome. No, he's been doing that a lot, and so when you see it now in 2022, and you see these guys making, they say, "Oh, that's one of the greatest catches I ever played." And I want to flip the TV over and be like, "Nah, we make plays like that all the time. You just ain't seen it."
Yeah.
So,
all right. We got to go professional hitters now. We're going to go
snap. Oh,
Eddie Murray or Edgar Martinez.
I take Eddie Murray all day. I take Baltimore Orioles. I take Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray was a switch hitter. And here's the God honest truth. Now I'll take Eddie Murray any day of the week, but I didn't like Eddie Murray. Okay, only because I can't be. If I didn't like you, I'm not going to choose you because I didn't like you. When I said I didn't like him, I just think that he was a weird cat. I think that's what it was more about. It wasn't even about baseball. Okay. Yeah, you're not from Maryland. Well, okay, let me ask you this question. It was a store called Cookies. Are you familiar with that? Are you
not familiar?
Oh, okay, it was a hood store. So not really a hood store, but it was a black store, so to speak. All right, and he, Eddie Murray would come in there. It's like a guy he didn't do a lot of interviews.
Right.
Some guys don't do a lot of interviews because either they can't talk well or they don't come off like, I don't want to buy nothing you selling. Okay, so he was in this Cookies commercial, which is already quote unquote in the hood, and he was in it, and that made me not like him because he wasn't believable. So when I saw him at bat, I was like, okay. I mean, I cheered for him, and people fail to realize now people gonna shoot me for saying not shoot me, but okay, you look at Eddie Murray, you look at Cal Ripken with the Orioles. Eddie Murray made Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
I said it. You know why I said it? Because they didn't want to pitch to Eddie Murray. So they pitched to Cal. So Cal, they said, all right, I'm gonna walk Eddie, or I'm gonna give Eddie good pitches to hit because I'd rather face Cal Ripken than to face Eddie Murray. And that's gangster.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. I'm pretty sure somebody's screaming at the broadcast now.
Oh, they will. But and I don't care. I don't care because I'm spitting facts. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, Cal is a beast. Cal's a beast. He wasn't the greatest hitter, that's for sure. But playing short, one of the best to ever do it. So that's my shout out to Cal. But but as far as that swinging that bat, that's fact.
I hear you there. Now, of course, we're gonna go back to the outfield. Reggie Jackson or Hank Aaron?
Oh, Reggie. Reggie is the reason why I played the game. I wore 44 for a purpose. He was everything that I wanted to be. He was my Muhammad Ali of baseball.
Okay.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson for sure. I mean, that's my cat, man. That's if I ever had a player that I would love to be able to sit down and, somebody say you had to sit down at a table dinner and eat with, it'll be him for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, and the last one we're gonna go the Negro Leagues. Josh Gibson or Satchel Paige?
Oh man, that's a hard one, but I'll take Satchel Paige for I mean, that's a hands down. Satchel Paige is he's one of my all-time greats, and this is the funny part about baseball. It's so funny. And it's the part that actually hurts me more so than anything now that we're talking about it even more, because I get a chance to relive some of this stuff. Okay. Now, when we say Negro Leagues, it's because Satchel wasn't allowed to play in the big dance until much later in his career. Okay.
Right.
Doesn't change his greatness. He was a bona fide, Hall of Famer / whatever, but just wasn't given the opportunity to be able to play. And one day I would love to be able to say who's your greatest baseball player that you love, and not transitions have to say from the Negro Leagues to Major League Baseball. and just be baseball player. Because that way you change the whole perspective of Negro leagues and baseball in itself. But you have to separate it because nobody knows about it. Or they know about it, but there were so many greats. There were so many greats in the Negro leagues, man, nobody talk about because they don't know. Like it's a cat named Cool Papa Bell. You ever heard of him?
I haven't, but I
Wow.
haven't. But
Yeah,
yes.
they used to say he was so fast that he could turn the lights out, but he would get in bed before the lights turned out. He would turn the switch before the lights went out, he'd be in bed. You know. And I think it was a true story. And I think the thing was, I think the light bulb, I don't want to mess up the story, but I think the light had a slight delay. He turned it out and he got in the bed and the lights went out and it was like, man, he fast, you know? So yeah, I think that's what happened. I mean, that's the story I'm telling. I heard something like, but yeah, man, yeah, definitely Satchel Paige, man. I think he, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a movie. You ever heard of Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars? Richard Pryor was in that movie. Richard Pryor was in that movie.
Gotta catch it though.
I gotta look it up, but I think it was a game where he told everybody to take their gloves off and sit down on the field, first base, second base, shortstop. The whole team sat down and he pitched, and he said he wouldn't get a hit, and he struck them out. He told nobody to field, sit on your gloves or sit in the field, something to that effect, where everybody took their gloves off and they sat down on the grass and they sat on the grass, fold their arms and just watch the game. And he was on the mound pitching. He said he won't get a hit. That's how great I am. And those are the type of players that's what I love. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Well, we have reached the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming on and giving us definitely some history in baseball and some facts in baseball as well. Of course, with Major League Baseball playoffs coming around as well. So I just want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for just spitting knowledge and facts and talking about something that's very important about the absence of Black people in baseball and basically how it all breaks down at different levels. I want to give you the platform now to kind of just tell everyone what you're working on, where they can find you on social media, anything else you want to tell anyone. The floor is yours.
Well, I have two companies that I represent. One, it's ProStar, which is where I develop my players. That's located here in Arizona. And same email, you can reach me at diamondpro44@gmail.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I have a sports agency, Elite Performance Sports Group. And we have Jody Cottrell and Keith Hill are my partners in this. And this is where we have representation for players, where we develop them. I'm the general manager and baseball operations player development agent for that. And Jody Cottrell is the attorney, and Keith Hill handles all the physical aspects of the game as far as player nutrition and exercise and kinesiology and art of medicine, the whole nine. So those are my partners, and we're located in Dallas. I have a location in Dallas. We have one here in Arizona and one in Houston. So that's currently what I do. So I just really develop players, young kids, try to find diamonds in the rough, develop them. I train online as well. Sometimes I have guys that I train online, but most of the time I have guys that travel here. Actually, I have kids that travel from Maryland every year. They come up and they play here in Arizona, and I try to help them get to the next level. So I have a lot of guys that we've signed. Some guys are in college now that we're waiting for their draft eligibility for 2023. So hopefully we'll have another group of guys for this year's Major League Baseball draft. So that's all I'm doing right now. And a lot of people don't know this too, but I do comedy too as well. So, but that's nobody really knows about that one. You gotta really deep and find that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank you again for coming on, Mr. Andre Stover. Thank everyone for listening in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.